The first snow of the year was falling when Ethan finally understood that his old life was gone. He stood outside the cheap motel on the edge of town, a duffel bag at his feet, everything he owned packed into 3 tied zippers. The startup had collapsed, the investors had vanished. His girlfriend had left a note that said, "I can't watch you destroy yourself anymore." His phone battery was at 3%. His bank account was at $11.42. His sense of identity was at 0. For the first time since he was a kid, he had no plan, no next step, only a looping thought. I have to start over, but I don't even know who to start as. He walked to the only place still open at 1 a.m., a tiny 24-hour diner. Neon hummed above the windows. The bell on the door rang like a broken memory when he stepped inside. The diner was almost empty. A trucker sleeping over cold coffee. A young woman scrolling her phone behind the counter. And, in the far booth, an old Japanese man in a simple dark coat, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, staring out the window as if watching a different world. Ethan slid into a corner seat and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. He stared at his reflection in the window. Messy hair, dark circles, eyes that looked older than they should. The words slipped out of his mouth before he could catch them. "Man, I ruined everything." The old man's eyes flicked toward him. They were sharp, but not unkind. "You ruined everything?" the man asked, his accent soft, his English precise. Ethan flushed. "Sorry, I was talking to myself." "Sometimes," the old man said, "we talk to ourselves because we wish someone wiser would answer." Ethan almost laughed. "Well, if you know a wise person, send him my way." The man regarded him for a moment. Then he stood, picked up his tea, and walked over to Ethan's booth. "May I sit?" Ethan shrugged. "Sure. Why not?" The man sat gracefully, as if his body still remembered some forgotten discipline. Up close, Ethan noticed thin scars on his hands, and a small, faded tattoo on his wrist, 2 intersecting lines, like a cross made with a brushstroke. "My name is Hayato," the man said. "You look like someone who thinks his life has turned to ash." "That obvious," Ethan muttered. "You keep whispering start over," Hayato said. "But that is not how my people think." "Your people?" "The samurai," Hayato replied quietly. "The real ones, not the movie ghosts. Did you know they had a rule?" Ethan frowned. "A rule?" "They never spoke of starting over," Hayato said. "Not once. When they lost everything, they did something else. Something far more powerful." Ethan leaned forward despite himself. "What?" "They rose from ash," Hayato said, "stronger than before, because they rebuilt with what the fire could not burn." Ethan almost rolled his eyes. "That sounds poetic, but my fire was bad decisions, debt, and being stupid. There's nothing noble about that." "Fire is fire," Hayato replied. "It does not care if it begins with lightning or with your own hand. What matters is what survives it." Hayato's gaze drifted to the snow-blurred window, as if memory were a film playing on the glass. "Let me tell you a story," he said. "Not about you. Not yet. About a samurai named Arata. Arata was born into a small clan in the mountains of Japan centuries ago. From the day he could walk, a wooden sword was put in his hands. He trained under his father, a quiet man whose eyes never seemed surprised by anything. "The world will take everything from you," his father would say, "but if you learn the true rule, it cannot break you." When Arata was 23, his world burned in a single night. A rival warlord attacked under moonless skies. By dawn, the clan's castle was gone, the banners torn down, the people scattered or dead. Arata had been away on patrol. He returned to find black smoke clawing at the sky and his father lying among the fallen. Arata fell to his knees beside him. "I failed you," he whispered. His father's breathing was shallow, his voice barely a thread. "No, you are still breathing. Listen." Arata bent closer. "Do not say you must start over," his father rasped. "Because that would mean this life, these wounds, this loss, were nothing. A samurai never begins from zero. He begins from truth. And the truth is everything you have seen, lost, broken, is part of you now. You rebuild not as a boy you were, but as a man forged by fire." Arata clenched his fists. But we have no home, no land, no clan. We are nothing. His father's fingers closed weakly around Arata's wrist. Then rebuild where no one can burn us again, he whispered. Hey! He tapped Arata's chest, then his forehead. In your spirit, in your mind. His hand fell away. His eyes did not close. They simply stopped seeing. Arata stayed by the body until nightfall, smoke and ash clinging to his skin. Start over, a voice in his head kept saying. Find a distant village. Change your name. Pretend this never happened. But his father's last words echoed louder. You rebuild not as the boy you were, but as a man forged by fire. So instead of running, Arata did something else. He walked through the ruins of his home with a small cloth bag. From the charred beams and fallen stones, he collected fragments, half of a shattered family crest, a blackened roof tile, the metal ring from a burned banner. He wrapped them carefully and tied the bag at his belt. When the neighboring lords offered him a place as a low-ranked soldier if he swore loyalty and forgot his dead clan, he bowed and refused. I cannot forget, he told them. My weakness burned with my home. My duty did not. 4 years, Arata wandered as a ronin, masterless samurai. He worked as a guard, a messenger, a sword for hire. Every night, he opened the cloth bag, laid out the burned fragment, and whispered, I am not starting again. I am building on what survived. When fear told him he was alone, he touched the broken crest and remembered his father's teachings. When shame whispered that he was a samurai whose clan died, he held a roof tile and reminded himself, I walked through fire and did not disappear. Piece by piece, he rebuilt, not the castle, but himself. His patience grew stone steady. His skill with the blade became precise as falling rain. His heart hardened not into bitterness, but into something unshakable, a refusal to erase his scars. One winter, rumors spread of a mountain village terrorized by bandits, the same warlords men who had burned Arata's home. The villagers begged nearby lords to help. Most ignored them. There was no profit in such a small place. Arata went alone. He arrived with only one sword and that same cloth bag at his belt. When the bandits rode in, laughing and drunk on stolen sake, they found a single man standing in the snow-covered road. Move, their leader sneered, or die with these peasants. Arata bowed slightly. I already died once, he said calmly. Tonight, only you begin again as ash. The fight that followed became legend. Arata moved like water over stone, his blade tracing the memory of every drill, every loss, every tear. When it ended, the snow was red and the village was safe. The villagers begged him to stay as their protector. Slowly, the village grew into a town. The town, under Arata's quiet guidance, became a place of refuge for those who had lost everything. He never rebuilt his old clan's castle. Instead, he built something stronger, a community of people whose lives had burned, but who refused to erase their past to start over. They wore their scars openly. They told their stories. They rose from ash. The diner felt impossibly quiet when Hayato stopped speaking. The hum of the refrigerator, the scratch of the waitress's pen, the soft tap of snow against the windows, everything seemed distant. Ethan realized his hands were clenched on the table. So what are you saying? He asked. That I'm supposed to carry around a bag of broken memories. Hayato smiled faintly. In a way, yes, you think you are at zero. You are not. You have failures. Yes, but also skills, lessons, pain you survived, people you loved and lost. Ash, yes, but ash from a life lived. Why throw it away and pretend to be someone with no past? Because my past is embarrassing. Ethan shot back. I promised everyone I'd succeed. I told my parents I'd be the first millionaire in the family. Now look at me. Hayato leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Do you want to live as a polished lie or as a scarred truth? Ethan looked down. The answer hurt because he already knew it. Scarred truth, he whispered. Good, Hayato said. Then you are ready for the rule Arata learned. The rule every true samurai carried when their world burned. He placed his hand flat on the table between them. A samurai never says, I will start over. He says, I will rise from here. Hayato tapped Ethan's chest with 2 fingers. Tomorrow, I will show you how to begin rebuilding from ash. Not by running from what burned, but by using it as your foundation. Ethan swallowed, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, a thin, fragile thread of hope. What do I have to do? He asked. Hayato stood, finished his tea, and slipped a small card onto the table. An address, a time, 5 a.m. First, he said, you will not sleep in this motel tonight feeling sorry for yourself. You will sleep knowing your old life has died with honor, and your new one begins at dawn. Second, you will show up. He paused at the door, snow swirling in behind him as it opened. And remember, Ethan, he added without turning around, we are not trying to erase your past. We are going to forge it. The samurai did not rise instead of their ashes. They rose with them. The bell chimed. The door closed. Ethan sat there, staring at the card, his heart pounding with fear and something else, something he could barely name. He picked up his cold coffee and whispered to the empty booth, I won't start over. I'll rise from here. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and silent over a city full of broken lives. But somewhere between a dying past and an unwritten future, a new samurai rule had just been born in one stubborn, wounded American heart. The sun had barely risen when Ethan reached the address on Hayato's card. A chill hung over the morning, the kind that bites through layers and stings your cheeks. He stood in front of an old, worn-down community center, cracked paint, rusted gutters, a faded sign. It looked abandoned. This can't be right, he thought. But then he heard it. A sharp thwack, then another, and another. The sound echoed like what striking would. Like training. Ethan pushed the door open. Inside was a wide, empty room with polished wooden floors. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, creating long golden stripes across the floor. In the center stood Hayato, but he was no longer the old man from the diner. He held a wooden bokken, a training sword, and moved with a grace that made time slow. Each strike was precise, balanced, controlled. His feet glided silently, his breath steady. It was like watching a man who had lived 100 lives. Ethan froze at the doorway. Hayato didn't stop, didn't glance his way, didn't acknowledge him at all. Only when he completed the final strike, powerful, clean, unbroken, did he lower the bokken and turn. You showed up, he said. Ethan nodded. Like you asked. Hayato stepped closer. He looked Ethan over, not judging, measuring. You want to rebuild your life, Hayato said. Good. But first, you must understand something essential. He pointed the bokken directly at Ethan's chest. You are standing on the ashes of your old world, and you are still thinking like someone who wants to run away from them. Ethan swallowed. I don't want to run. You do, Hayato said calmly. Everyone does. Running is the first instinct of a person who hits rock bottom. They want to shed everything, erase everything, start clean. But this is the way of the modern man, not the samurai. He turned, walking slowly to the window. In Japan, he continued, a samurai who lost his home, his rank, his clan, did not start as nothing. He started as someone who survived. Ethan stepped forward. But I'm not a warrior. I messed up. I blew opportunities. Hayato snapped. Good. Then your fire was real. Ethan stopped mid-sentence. Hayato faced him fully now. People believe they change when life is comfortable, he said. But transformation only happens when everything collapses. His voice softened. You think your failure makes you weak. I see something different. I see a man who has finally been stripped of illusions. Ethan exhaled shakily. So, what happens now? Hayato held out the sparring weapon. You learned the rule. Ethan stared at it. The rule you mentioned last night. Yes. Hayato nodded once. The rule that kept warriors from losing their spirit, even when they lost everything else. He placed the bokken gently into Ethan's hands. Strike, Hayato said. Ethan blinked. I don't know how. Strike anyway. Ethan gripped the wooden sword awkwardly and swung. It was sloppy, arms too stiff, feet planted wrong, the angle completely off. Hayato shook his head. Again. Ethan tried. Wrong again. Again. He tried. Wrong again. 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 By the 12th attempt, Ethan's shoulders burned. Sweat beaded on his forehead. This is pointless, Ethan muttered. Hayato's eyes hardened. There it is, he said. The first weakness every samurai learns to kill. He stepped forward. The belief that effort without instant success is worthless. He positioned Ethan's hands on the sword properly, tilted his shoulders, adjusted his stance. Now strike. Ethan swung. The sound was different, cleaner, sharper, still not perfect, but undeniably better. Hayato nodded. That, he said, is rising. Not starting over. Rising. He walked behind Ethan. Do you know the second weakness? Hayato asked. Ethan shook his head. The story you tell yourself about your failures. He tapped Ethan's back. You say, I wasted years. I disappointed people. I failed. But that is not the truth. So what is the truth? Ethan asked quietly. The truth, Hayato said, is that you now know what destroys you. Most men live their whole lives never discovering that. He circled around to face Ethan. In Japan, samurai carry kintsugi bowls, small pottery pieces repaired with gold. Why? Because a cracked bowl repaired is stronger than one never broken. Its lines of gold become proof of survival, not shame. He held Ethan's face in his steady gaze. You, Ethan, are a kintsugi bowl. Your cracks are gold waiting for purpose. Ethan's throat tightened. I don't feel strong, he whispered. Hayato gave a small smile. That is because you are standing in the middle of your fire. Strength is only visible once the flames die. He walked back to the center of the room and raised his bokken. Now we begin your rebuilding. Hayato led Ethan through a sequence of slow, deliberate movements, Kata designed to synchronize breath, mind, and action. Why are we doing sword movements? Ethan asked. We are not training your sword, Hayato said. We are training your mind to obey again. He demonstrated. Step, exhale, strike, pause, inhale, reset, everything slow, everything intentional. Ethan did his best to mimic him. You see, Hayato said, in the West, people panic when their lives collapse because they believe the collapse is a sign they must erase everything and reinvent from scratch. He pointed the bokken at the floor. But a samurai sees collapse as a teacher. He leaned closer. Your life burned because something weak was inside it. Good. Now you can rebuild without that weakness. Ethan looked down at his hands, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and clarity. So what exactly are we rebuilding? He asked. Hayato answered simply. Your identity. He stepped back and bowed slightly. Lesson 1 of rising from ash. Do not rebuild who you were. Rebuild who the fire revealed. After an hour, Ethan's arms shook from effort. His legs trembled. His breath came uneven. But something inside him, something buried under months of guilt and shame, was waking up. Hayato placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You did well today, he said. Tomorrow at sunrise, we continue. Bring nothing but yourself. Ethan nodded. As he walked out of the community center, the morning sun hit his face, warming him. For the first time in months, his chest didn't feel heavy. His steps felt grounded. He reached the street, looked up at the sky, and whispered, I won't run from the ashes. Not this time. Behind him, in the dojo's doorway, Hayato watched, and he smiled, because the real rebuilding had finally begun.
If you like the video, so please subscribe my YouTube channel.